Hello Daily Drafters and welcome back to the channel for week 4 of my participation in the Arena Gauntlet League. For those of you that have missed weeks 1 through 3 or an explanation on what this is, you can find links to those videos in the description. But we are beginning week 4 here with a respectable 9-6 record, beginning with the deck you see on your screen right now, a red-white aggro deck. I say respectable 9-6. It's very difficult to top 8 these things. There's about 125 players, and to top 8, you usually need to be somewhere in the vicinity of 20-10. So we kind of have to go like 11-3 to really stand a chance to finish this league out, or 11-4, something like that. But we're going to give it our best shot, and this week is the week that we have to start to attempt to do that. So this is our starting deck. We are beginning with a record of 9-6 in 22nd place in the league right now. Not too bad, 22nd out of 125, so we will take it. And we are starting our first matchup this week against Jamie, who's ranked 29th, with a record of 9-7 and a deck size of 52 compared to our 60. So we start on the play here with our aggressive deck, which is always a nice spot to be, exactly where you want to be with red-white. I'm also going to go ahead and make some cuts in and out of these games just to save both you and me time. I'm recording my face cam post edits commentary style here so as to save you time. Like I said, these videos usually end up being 2 to 3 hours long without edits, so I have to cut out a little bit of the portion of the gameplay. So play our 2-drop. It does, in fact, die, and we've drawn nothing but lands. Hint, hint, foreshadowing. Be a fun part of today. Don't present a target for Omen of the Forge, so they just ramp while we don't do anything. And draw a 2-drop, and we'll play a 4, and we're kind of all in on the Buzz Crusher here. So we skip forward a little bit. Buzz Crusher has, in fact, died. Haven't dealt them much damage. We've drawn a few more cards. You know, the Doll, the Toby, the Most Valuable Slayer. They've also put a lot of creatures on the board. But they have a 6-drop that fights one of our creatures coming down after this. And if I continue to let the Wickerfolk Thresher hit me, they're drawing an extra card every turn. Now, like, the way this turn is going to end is that they have 3 1/1s and a 4/4, and I have a 1/1 and a 4/4. Which is really not a winning combo for an aggro deck. They just have kind of removed our creatures. We've got 7 lands, you know. They have 8 lands, so it's not like we've drawn that many more lands than they have, but we're just kind of stuck here. 4 cards in their hand. They've got an extra 5/5 sitting on board for when they want to cast it in Weight Room. Silent Hall Creeper. I mean, I can try to make some double blocks here. Hope they work, but even after this double block, if it does work, I have a 3/3 and a 1/1. They're at 15 life. It's really not a winning. You can see me basically just saying good game there. They're just playing creatures. Here comes another land. Let's pass it back. I'm willing to give it one more turn, although with this aggro deck, if we haven't closed out the game by now, there's really no chance of that happening. So take 5-8 minimum, basically. Well, I guess we take 7. That thing hits us. Becomes a copy of Clammy Prowler, and now they have tons of unblockable. Play a 1/2. Play a 3/2. Top deck a land. And that's game 1. Simple as that. Maybe we ran a little soft, but not really. So don't make any sideboarding decisions between game 1 and game 2 here. And we're on the play in game 2 with the mulligan, so you always love to see that. We do have a 2/1 to start, followed by another 2/1 that draws us another card. So that's a decent start here, but we are really just going to need some extra help off the top of the deck. And so far, double land is not that help we need. So we pass it back, and they are able to effectively put a creature on the board, and a pretty darn annoying one at that. So we'll draw our third land here. And we learned from last game that if we don't win this game pretty quickly, then like we're just gonna lose to all kinds of value on the board. So I'm thinking, do I want to trade? Do I want to play Sheltered by Ghosts here? Looking back on it, honestly, I kind of wish I would have just played Sheltered by Ghosts. This is a very easy trade for them. So they just trade the 2-1 for the 1-2, and I can't even cast anything this turn. The bargain, I'd have to sack my only creature, which doesn't feel great. So I don't know why I didn't play Sheltered by Ghosts there. Now looking back, when they play Say Its Name, that means they're probably digging for a land. Or they would just like another really good blocker down. Yeah, buying back a Chainweb Arachneer is going to do great. So we'll draw our fourth land in a row here this game. And, I mean, having drawn 4 lands, we're pretty much already out of this one. I can hit him for 3 here. But had I Sheltered by Ghosts last turn, they wouldn't have been able to get it back, and they would be at least at 11 or so. That's a creature I can kill and exile, but the issue is it makes a 1-2. So we'll draw our 5th land in a row here. And pay 2 and give him a 1-2, and I can't even attack. So once again, really not much going on. We've skipped forward, and we haven't actually drawn another land, but drawing 5 lands in a row to start this game it's just not gonna work. We drew Nemesis, Phantom, and Orphans and played them all, but we're at the point where it's kind of irrelevant. We didn't develop the board even remotely in the early point of the game, and it was a pretty easy keep, and then we drew 5 lands. And you know, sometimes that's what's going to get you out of a game. So they just got everything in the world here. I mean, all of the creatures. I've got a couple of irrelevant things. And I'm basically just like letting it go one more turn before I hit the concede button here. There's not much else I can do. So double survivor saying good game. And now I'm done. So we go from 9-6 to 9-7 to start this week. So we're going to have to go on a little bit of a run here. We started in 22nd place at a record of 9-6. And we drop all the way to just 27th place. I'm playing these games pretty early on in the week. So there's not a lot of people that have had the chance to pass me up yet. But we go to 9-7. And for those of you that don't remember, we do get what is called a comeback pack. So I chose Theros Beyond Death as my comeback pack to add to my sealed pool. And then I get to go ahead and make some changes. Went ahead and added a Plains, the Underworld Rage Hound, and a Banishing Light, and took out a Cult Healer. Here's the deck going into the next match. Our deck size did increase by 2 because of the Dread level mechanic. So we go ahead and play against Crumb here with a record of 10-6 in 19th place on a full 5-color deck here in match 2. And we're presented with a mulligan to start. We can't cast any of our spells, so we'll mulligan into a 6-lander. Today's just not been our day yet, so we'll see if we can keep our way out of this. I absolutely hate going to 5 unless I have a 0-lander. Plus, Irreverent Gremlin, if we draw any other 2-drop and it survives, we can at least rummage away some extra lands here. So that's my thought in keeping this. Not that it's really that great. But yeah, so we draw Toby. That at least triggers Gremlin on turn 3 if it does in fact survive. So let's see what the play is here by Crumb. Underwater Tunnel to get a little bit of a surveil on. Sure. Omen of the Forge. Hopefully we are presented with a target at some point for that card. But we're relying on this Gremlin to be able to sculpt our hand here. Cryptic Coat does make a 3/2. That is an absolute bomb in most limited formats, but might be a little too slow for our deck. We'll have to see here. So it's a pretty easy Toby and rummage away a mountain this turn. There's not much else we can do. It does have Ward 2, so the Omen is not the greatest play with it, but we'll rummage away a mountain to draw planes here. And send it back with not much left in our hand. Loathsome Chimera. And now we have a bit of an interesting, play. We've got the Grand Entry making a 1/1, rummaging away another land here, so we will get rid of the land and draw Case of the Burning Masks. And Omen of the Forge does open up a little bit of an attack for us. We kill the Chimera, and we're able to attack with a 4/4 and a 2/2 that are effectively unblockable here. Unless they want to chump, which I don't think they do. So they go to 12. We do have actually some pressure, so we skip forward just a little bit. I think just a turn or so. We drew Most Valuable Slayer. We played it, tacked them down to 7. They're stumbling on lands a little bit. So now we can play Case, kill their creature, pay the ward, and then we're able to attack for currently on board 9. Let's see if that changes at all. Looks like they're able to kill the 4/4, which is fine. They still have to take 5, go to 2 here. And we did solve our case, so they just stumbled a little bit on lands there, which, is something that happens. So, gotta go second. Didn't make any sideboarding changes between game 1 and game 2 here. I took a look and decided not to make any changes. Hope that the aggression can continue in game 2. So we go ahead and keep the 3 creature hand and hope to find some removal off the top, basically. Go ahead, play the Cheerleader, because if they don't have another creature, we can at least have the survival trigger on this. But they do play another creature. So now our Cheerleader just threatens to trade for their 2/1. And more lands. So that trades, and then I have to decide if I want a 2/2 that surveils or a 3/1 that at least can threaten to trade with their 1/3. So I go ahead and play the 3/1 here, hoping that they don't play an X4, as my Underworld Ragehound is forced to attack. So let's see what they got here. Already more lands than last game, so same with us. Keep drawing more of them. So forced to attack, so we offer this trade. But unfortunately, Glimmerburst is the play, and it trades for a 1/1 that draws them 2 cards. So that is a clean 3-for-1, which is very brutal. So we go ahead and play the Fear, and as is a theme so far in this video, we're pretty much out of gas. We skip forward, we've got now 7 lands, a Scapegoat, they got a 4/4 flyer, they've killed 2 of our creatures on board. I play this here, and then I skip a little bit because I have to decide whether or not to suspect it. So I chose not to. And then all I have left is Sheltered by Ghosts. So I put it on my least valuable creature and just hope that they can't deal with the 4/4. Next turn, my 4/2 has to attack. We need something really good off the top here. I mean, I don't really know what it could be necessarily. Maybe Fear of Abduction or something. But they do have Shock, which is able to get rid of the Scapegoat and give them a 4/4 flyer. And all I've got, once again, is a 2/2 or a 4/2 that can just trade with their 2/2, pretty much. Because it's forced to attack. So we'll draw more lands here that don't do anything. And I guess we can escape the Ragehound again. I did that. They killed it again. You see we've got even more lands with a doll now on the battlefield. And Pass it back. They're drawing 2 cards a turn here now. Orphans doesn't do anything. So we couldn't quite get out ahead of the deck here. So I did decide that they're playing a little bit of a Self-Milled Delirium kind of deck to bring in push-pull to steal cards from their graveyard, and also decided to take out one of the Grand Entryway Elegant Rotundas. That card hasn't actually been super great in this deck. You'll see in a moment or two that I prefer to not have it in this deck going forward. But go ahead and play it on turn 2 to get a 1/1 here. They play Insidious Fungus, which threatens to trade with most of our stuff, and I mean, I've got a lot of removal, so the question is, do I play some of it? So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the Fungus, which, if I put the counters on the 2/2, they could just trade the Fungus for the 2/2. So, or put the counters on the 1/1, it becomes a 2/2. And then the Fungus just trades. So I just did that here. I don't have a way to have 3 permanents deal damage currently. And we just don't have threats in our hand. This deck is proving to be like a good amount of removal and a good amount of threats, but I'm not really drawing them in combination with each other. I'm kind of just drawing one or the other. They're not really like, okay, play your threat, play your threat, play your threat, remove their creature, remove their creature. They're at 10. Like, that's how this deck is supposed to operate, but here in week 4, it's not really doing that. I mean, again, we were 9-6 with a very similar version of this deck for the first 3 weeks of the league. And after talking with some more league mates, and as you know, this is my first league, I learned that in general, as the league progresses and as players get more and more packs added to their sealed pool, decks get more and more powerful, especially late game decks. So, like, an aggro deck, like, has to be very, very good to compete into the late game against these decks that are consistently producing bigger and bigger and better bombs here. So, I mean, I put some counters with the intent of next turn playing Trial of Agony to be able to push some damage. We skip forward a little bit. They've killed both of our creatures, got the Centipede back, and played a Ghost Vacuum. We've drawn a couple more, but as you see, we still do have more lands in hand here. Once again, as is the theme with this. So we are able to attack with Fear of Surveillance and get the Surveil trigger. It does not survive much longer than that. But we'll go ahead and, I mean, Toby, it's not that great, but, like, what else am I hoping for that's better out of this deck? You know? Like, Fear of Abduction is really the only card that comes to mind, but that's not even that great. Toby and his friend have died at this point. We're down to 5. They just played another creature, so they're just removing and countering effectively everything. Actually, they played the counter spell on Toby and put him in the yard. Toby enters, makes a 4/4. They get a loot. They crack their thing. They steal our entire graveyard. We are at 5, and a Percussionist will not do anything. So we go ahead and lose round 2 to go to a record of 9-8. Deck is really not performing well. It's not that deck that we played against had a ton of bombs or anything. It just removed our creatures and we couldn't push any damage. So we dropped to 32nd place here, surrounded by several players that you've seen so far featured on the channel. Alifos and the Dragon will be up next, who is a little bit ahead of us. So here's our comeback pack that I chose, another DSK pack here. And really didn't get anything good out of it. We got an Orphans of the Wheat and a Patch Plaything. So the deck that I decided to run for the next match included adding a Raucous Carnival and an Orphans of the Wheat and taking out a Plains and that stupid Frantic Scapegoat. That thing wasn't really doing anything. So, as I said, Dragon is the next opponent here with a record of 10-8, ranked 21st playing Sultai. So that is our round 18 match. So we're going to get going here with a record of 9-8. At this point, we pretty much have to go 11-2. Stranger things have happened. We've gone on some runs so far. So go ahead and play the mountain. Hope that the cheerleader can survive so that it can be a flyer, but that is a little far in the future here. Let's see. And there's a bookworm. Perfect. Well, that's a very easy trapped in the screen target. That does mean that the cheerleader does get to survive. But, you know, I'd prefer the trapped in the screen be able to be used on some things that are a little bit bigger, but gotta do what you gotta do. So, get rid of the bookworm here. Land, Cryptid Inspector, Mist, land, drop. So I see a line that I didn't see before. I should play Percussionist. Well, actually, let's see what I did. I attacked and then threatened Jump Scare here. So, yeah, that actually makes sense. I think that's fine. I was going to say I should play Percussionist and then use Betrayer's Bargain to kill their Cryptid Inspector. But I could still do that next turn if he chose to block there. So, seems fine, because now Betrayer's Bargain can do some work here. Plus the Percussionist will also give me an impulse draw, hopefully find a land, so that I can play Orphans. And this Typhon has Escape, but we do get to exile it. And we did find that land, so we actually do get to play Orphans here. And then next turn we've got the Buzz Crusher. And we are effectively putting on some pressure and removing. So this is a game where we kind of did the thing. Now, we skip forward, and they have unfortunately resolved some creatures. We ran out of gas as far as removal. And, you know, they have drawn their removal. So you can see a Cult Healer in the yard. Clearly the Orphans has hit the yard. We drew a Rage Hound. We don't have our 6th land for this Fear of Abduction. And the Cheerleader's just dealing 2. So they are pushing 8, 9 damage a turn here at this point. The Rage Hound is forced to attack next turn. I guess I probably should have blocked, considering it's just going to die anyway. But Shelter by Ghost, good card, but it doesn't really solve anything here. I mean, they still have... I mean, I can attack with both and go to 5, but I'm just mega dead. So... they drew removal. I stopped drawing removal. And that was it. So I didn't see a lot of instant speed removal though. So I brought in Eros' Blessing and took out one of those Grand Entryway Elegant Rotundas, kind of like I did last match. So I'm going to go ahead and go first here in game 2. Dragon takes a mulligan. We've got Orphans and then a couple shots at a 3rd land to be able to play Fear or Toby here. Toby would be nice because that means the Orphans attacks as a 4/3. On turn 3, which would be pretty nice. And we did find the land, so let's play the Orphans. No other plays, so we're kind of off to a good start here. And we do still have a removal spell in hand. So like next turn we can play Buzz Crusher, the following turn we can remove something and we can attack for like 12 or something. So we've got a lot of pressure. Let's see if any sort of removal can get Dragon back into this. Not exactly removal, but it's something. So now I have to make a decision. Do I remove the Vitality? Do I play the Beastie? I kind of wish I would have played the Buzz Crusher here this turn. My thought was if I remove the Vitality, they get access to 1 less mana next turn, but I don't really think that matters that much. So I wish I would have played the Buzz Crusher. That's a 4-powered flying creature that I think would have put a ton of pressure on them, but this is also a line that pushed a lot of damage. We have a Haster next turn as well. So I can kind of see why I did what I did as well. Plus, we've got Shattered Yard at some point to kind of finish out the last bits of this damage is the goal. But let's see if he can recover from being put down to 8 here. Voracious Typhon will not do it, especially with that Heroic Blessing top deck here. So we drew 2 removal spells and like 5 creatures and 4 lands. I mean, when we do that, this deck actually like functions. Previously, that had not been the case. So sideboarding here, I realized that being aggressive is about my only chance. So I bring in the Heliod's Punishment, which is like a temporary aggressive removal spell, and take out that other stupid Grand Entryway, Elegant Rotunda as well. And it's a suspect hand, but Orphans into Dollmaker's Shop with Jump Scare backup is a good start. We just have to hope the top of our deck cooperates with helping us out, and so far it's done absolutely nothing for us. So we've drawn 2 lands, and the Orphans in the Dollmaker's Shop kind of has to go the distance here, which, you know, against these pools with lots of removal, especially in Sultai, it's just gonna be difficult to make that happen. So we'll draw a 3rd land here. We've gotten absolutely no help from the top of our deck. We'll attack, make the 1/1, tap it, and use Jump Scare, and just like that, we're out of gas. I mean, just like we did in match 1 where we drew 5 lands in a row. You know, it is what it is. Here we are, skip forward. We drew a Trapped in the Screen and a Gremlin, but also like 3 more lands. So we've skipped to the point where they are now the aggressor. They haven't lost a single life point. We're at 8. They're drawing 1 to 2 extra cards a turn. They've even removed Porcelain Gallery. Here comes our 9th land, and I'm over it. So this deck has really, maybe we've run a little not great today, or maybe it is just a little bit of the fact that, you know, later in the league, the aggro decks get a little bit less appealing. So we got a 9/9, and I take a comeback pack of Karlov Manor that has Izoni Center of the Web in it, and that gets me thinking, what really do I have to lose at this point than to switch up my entire deck? Clearly, Red-White has not worked so far this week. We're 0-3. And Izoni is an absolute bomb. We have tons of removal in Black-White, as well as a lot of our best cards here. Fear of Abduction, Dollmaker's Shop, Elspeth Conquers Death, Banishing Light, Trapped in the Screen, Toby. We've got a ton of good white cards. We can splash green for Izoni here. We've got Live or Die as extra removal, or Reanimates for our 3 cycling creatures. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 removal spells in this deck. So we've got creatures, we've got removal. My thought is, clearly Red-White wasn't working. Let's switch it up. So we go up against NJSIII, who has a record of 8-7 in 43rd place, playing Teamer. And we get to start off with a mulligan. But the 6 is pretty good, so we'll go ahead and throw the 5-drop back. And start by getting green here. Got to go 11-1 from here. Let's do it. So, starting on Fear of Surveillance. And then the doll should draw an extra card. Never mind. The doll will not draw an extra card. Omen of the Forge kills it. But we'll play Glimmer Seeker, and if that survives, we can get a 1/1 in which the doll will draw an extra card. No plays, not too bad. So I will attack here, get the 1/1, and then cycle the Snatcher for a land, play it, play the doll, draw a card. Seems like a decent little turn here. This deck is still a little bit aggressive. We've got a lot of the still like aggressive white pieces that we did in the other deck. It's just got so much more removal and bombs in the late game. So we skip forward just a little bit. They got a 4-4 and an 0-4. we've still got a very similar board here. We were able to manifest, or whatever it's called, manifest Dread and Unstoppable Slasher off of the Unsettling Twins that have died, which, surprise, hits them for a lot of damage there. When you don't know that's coming, that's a pretty good attacker. So they look to be flooding out pretty hard. They've got 8 lands on the battlefield. Granted, we've got 6, but 8 lands makes life a little difficult to come back. They've got a lot of 4/4s, but when you're not attacking with the Horde Callers, I do think they end up being a lot worse here. So they're at 5 and cast a spell, but apparently they thought they were dead. So I saw a lot of targets in which Winter's Intervention would be pretty good. I think Appendage Amalgam is like the last card in this deck. So go ahead and bring in the Winter's Intervention. Take out the Appendage Amalgam here for game 2. And start on the draw with an Orphans into a Slasher, which is not a bad start, except on the draw it is a little bit more suspect. Very, very unlikely the Orphans will get in, but I don't think it's a mulliganable hand. So we'll play one of those Orphans here. That makes both Slasher and Orphans a little bit worse. But at the end of the day, trading Orphans for Burrower is like not the end of the world. Yeah, so I just go ahead and play the Slasher here. We've got a removal spell for next turn. I'm looking at their pool here. I haven't mentioned yet this video that I do have access to their pool of cards. And I noticed they got priority with 1 island up last turn. So I looked at their pool to see if that island was an instant in any way, like a mount spell or something. I can't remember what I deduced it was, but clearly it wasn't an instant. I think it's just some sort of sorcery speed cantrip or something. So there's Fear of Isolation, bouncing the island. Getting rid of Granite Witness, replaying the island, and it was unable to scream. So now our Slasher is not doing great here. So I made an interesting play here. I don't know if it's correct or not, quote unquote. The Sheltered by Ghosts can get rid of the Unable to Scream, which leaves us with a 3/3 Death Touch that when it hits them deals twice as much damage. Plus, if they kill it, the Unable to Scream won't actually go on anything. So I can put them down to like 8 or something here. So I go ahead and do this Sheltered and get rid of the Unable to Scream. So an interesting line. I don't know if this was like optimal, but I thought it was kind of fun. So I did it. Put them down to 8. Now we skip forward. Not much has changed. Just skip forward like a turn or two. And I don't know if this was the right play here. I go ahead and Trapped in the Screen. I know with this Unstoppable Slasher, I can force a double block effectively because they go to 5 and then down to 3 or 2 or something. So I effectively force this double block and leave myself with a 2/1. And the Slasher comes back. So I figured this was a decent spot to be in, but gosh, skip forward a couple more turns and our Orphans are dead and they've got a Tyvar all of a sudden and a Ghost Vacuum. Like they have either top decked or held in their hands very well. And maybe my 0-3 record led to this, but you can probably see it before. Clearly I did. An enormous punt coming. I forgot that the Zealot creates mana at instant speed, and I forgot that Tyvar had a second ability that pumps the entire thing. Pumps all of their creatures' power here. So I throw away an Eliminator, and the Slasher unfortunately gets tapped there. I think that was a pretty big punt in this game. Especially because now Ghost Vacuum can get rid of that thing. So, would I have been able to win if I didn't do that? Well, the fact that Banishing Light and Drag to the Underworld might have been coming off the top of the deck. Maybe so. Skip forward a turn or two. We were able to find Izoni. But Ghost Vacuum, cracking Undercity Eliminator, sacrificing, exiling Izoni. Izoni was the reason we're playing this deck, remember. We just barely didn't have enough. I did not play this game optimally, I don't think at all. Had I done so, was there a chance to win? Potentially. It's too difficult to know those sorts of things without, actually seeing that alternate universe. But I was looking for Izoni. But Live or Die does reanimate. But it was unfortunately exiled. So I'm just not really pushing through any sort of damage here. So no sideboard between game 2 and 3. And we go first in game 4 or game 3, and our hand is just not that great. We have a ton of 2s, a ton of 3s here. I just don't think this is a hand you can really mulligan. You mulligan down to 6 and you end up with 3 swamps and 3 white cards, and then you're at 5. It's like, what are we doing? There's the Gremlin, pretty easy target here. Our turns are pretty much set up for us, but we're not really doing a lot. I mean, we're playing Woestrider, but all I gotta do is play a 2-2, and my board is relevant. There's a 2-2. Pass back to my turn, and we're getting no help. That's the theme of these hands. You keep these kind of suspect hands, and you're like, all right, deck, give me a couple 2-drops and 3-drops. And it says, what about... I heard the word 3 in there. 3 lands is what you said, right? So now we just wait, skip forward. We're at 8 lands now. Got Fear of Abduction. And here's an interesting interaction that both me and they didn't know about here. So when this targets that creature, it's worded, I don't know the exact way that this is worded differently, but they're going to go ahead and flip up their disguised card, which is an exit specialist, to bounce my Fear of Abduction. Now, usually that would leave the Granite Witness on the battlefield for some reason, but this time it just goes to their graveyard. You can see me like looking at the card and they had said, oops. Neither of us knew it was really going to do that. I'm at 7. I definitely should have attacked there. I'd forgotten that Exit Specialist also can't be blocked by creatures power 3 or greater. So that was a mistake on myself. There I am looking at it. Would it have mattered? Probably not. Oh, look, our 9th land. That's what we needed. That was the one that did us. I can cast the Fear of Abduction, exiling Woestrider, getting rid of the beastie, but this Exit Specialist, it has a 3-turn clock on me. So I also can't really get rid of the Exit Specialist because then I have to just trade for the beastie. So I'm kind of just like, maybe I can race with my 5/5 and then kill your 2/1 with Live or Die. That's kind of what I'm thinking here. But now that's immobilized, so that plan is out the window, and here's our 10th land. So once again, exactly what we needed. And you're in a bad spot when you are forced to cast a 5-mana instant speed removal spell on their 2/1. That's what we do here. So send it there and pass it back. We drew an Eliminator. And then our 11th land, and lots of lands. So we're 0-4 this week, going from 9-9 in 32nd place to 9 and 10 in 37th place. So now we have to go 11 and 0 to finish off the league. Can we do it? Well, it all starts with the next match, right? So here's our comeback pack that I took. I don't even know what pack I chose. What was this? Shadows over Innistrad or something? I was just like, lower my dread level as much as I can. So I go ahead and did that. Here's the new deck for the last round of today. Brought in a Bound by Moonsilver, another removal spell, and cut Winter's Intervention, a Swamp, a Forest, and one of the 2 Liver dies. And we're going against Hagzolt in 10th place in the league, 10th out of 125, with a record of 11 and 4, playing a straight Selesnya deck. So we will go first here, and we see the bomb in the hand. So we're going to have to rely on Izoni to do some good work. Otherwise, this will be one of the most unceremonious exits in AGL history, potentially. But we're not done yet, you know. Going against a good opponent here, but we've got a very, very good card in hand in game 1. So we've got Orphans on 2, got removal on 3 if we need it, and then turn 4, another removal and a land cycle, and then turn 5, off we go. And Sheltered by Ghosts has not really been good in most of the decks I played. Usually what it does is like get rid of your creature, attack, and then my creature just sits there because I don't want to trade it anymore. So I have to decide exactly how to get rid of this House Cartographer. The most mana efficient thing is Banishing Light, but that doesn't seem great. So I do this while I can, which I don't think this was the right time to do this necessarily, but we'll see here. We're just trying to get to Izoni this game. That's basically the only reason we switched into this deck, and we've cast it once already, and it was quite good already. It kept us in a game that probably had no business being in. But now we've got nowhere to run, but unfortunately they played 2 creatures, and just like that, Sheltered by Ghosts means I can't attack. So I think I've been misplaying with Sheltered by Ghosts, if we're being honest. I think there's a lot better things you could be doing with that card. So I have to make all sorts of decisions here. My thought is I'm going to cycle the Shepherding Spirits and play Nowhere to Run, so that I can guarantee myself Izoni in a turn or 2. And we skip forward. They've clearly drawn gas. They got all sorts of stuff on the battlefield. And we are finally at the point where we can cast an Izoni. Still at 23 life, so it's not like the Glimmer has done a ton to us, but Izoni has definitely got us back into this game that we otherwise likely would not be in. And we have removal for that Lionheart Glimmer. Now, if I had remembered that my Nowhere to Run on the battlefield got around ward abilities, I definitely would have played this next turn differently. But that is not something I did remember to do. And Hardened Escort attacking with Reluctant Role Model means I need to kill this Hardened Escort basically right now. And the only really effective way to do that is to block with my 2/3 powered creatures. Because I have to use my removal on the Glimmer and or the Role Model. Honestly, there's a lot of things I need to use my removal on here. But I'm kind of weighing my options, counting things up. But eventually decide that this Hardened Escort needs to go, and them having a House Cartographer at this point in the game doesn't matter too much. So I do that here, make those trades. And my Izoni doesn't really have good attacks, unfortunately. But we have a nice draw entrapped in the screen. So I was worried because I was like, all right, well, I still have to get attacked by a role model. I basically have to get rid of the Glimmer here. But once again, I was surprised when I played this and targeted the Glimmer, and the Nowhere to Run was like, oh, you don't have to pay Ward. And I was like, well, that makes this turn a lot better. So now that means I can get rid of this Reluctant role model as well. But I don't have great attacks with the Zoni necessarily. I mean, I have to trade it for a 5/5, which could be okay. But I could wait one more turn, use the Eliminator to exile that 5/5, and then potentially be able to trade Zoni for like all of their creatures. So that's the line I decide to take. Obviously hoping that there's not much left in hand. But Baseball Bat is a nice aggressive creature here. Okay, there's a 6/6, and then there's a 4/4, which does kind of ruin my plan at least a little bit. But I think the Eliminator killing the 6/6 is probably important here. And at the very least, trading a Zoni for a 4/4 and then getting two 2/1s out of the deal isn't the end of the world. It does its best work on attacks, so there's no sense in holding it back to defend, right? So go ahead and trade it off for their 2/2/2s. The Cautious Survivor equipped with a Baseball Bat is kind of annoying, but we are able to eventually get rid of it. And we draw a Reanimate for Zoni here, which goes a long way. We're able to even eat their Optimistic Scavenger as well, which is a brutal beat, because the Zoni now gets to trigger once more on attacks, get 2 more 2/1s, and that's why we switched to this deck, because if we could find this card and to make use of it, it's great. So obviously bring in both Winter's Interventions, bring in an Omen of the Sun for life gain and 1/1s, and Seize from Slumber as a 2-mana removal spell against this deck, and take out a couple of clunkers that were sitting in the deck as well. So had to mulligan, wasn't really able to cast much of that first hand, so I had to take this mulligan, which is not a great spot to be. But what can you do? Alright, basically the exact same start as last game here, and we do have 2 cheap removal spells though, which hopefully should help stem the bleeding against this deck. But Enduring Vitality is pretty brutal. That's a card that, you know, lets them get the free trigger off the Acrobatic Cheerleader. They now played a 3/3 and a 3/1 and got a counter and gave a creature flying this turn, and I've drawn 2 lands in a row, so, I mean, I'm debating what to do with Nowhere to Run. My thought is, I could attack, and if they choose to block, I can kill something, but I wanted to get the, Surveil, get that extra land off the top, and they presented Baseball Bat in game 1, so my thought is, what if they played Baseball Bat, tried to put it on their Cheerleader or something? I could kill it in response. And Baseball Bat is the play, so let's see where they decide to put it. On the Watchdog, so as to not have my creature get tapped, I decide to go ahead and just kill the Watchdog here. Because they're attacking for 11 on turn 4. In come the creatures, take 6. And that's a 4/4. So, I'm presenting nowhere to run here, but I don't really have much else to do. I mean, removal seems good in this spot. They're out of creatures. They're out of cards in hand, so I'm thinking of using Long Goodbye on Cheerleader and then Nowhere to Run on their Cautious Survivor. But I had forgotten about the baseball bat sitting over there. So that's not great either. But I can also potentially kill something in response to them equipping. But they chose not to equip. So being this far behind, I have to take a couple of risky lines. So go ahead and block the Cautious Survivor, use the Nowhere to Run, and use Long Goodbye. Take 3, keep my 2/2, and don't end up in a horrible spot, to be honest. Let's see what the top deck was. It was a 4-drop, which is why they chose not to equip there. Get more creatures. And now we skip forward a little bit. My fear has died. I've drawn another land or two and a Branch Snapper I can't cast. Go ahead and cycle the Branch Snapper just in case I draw a Zoni, but nope, it's a Plains. And that's it. So it was kind of a top deck battle for a moment there. They won it. So we bring in, now that we're on the play, a few more aggressive creatures, take out kind of the more clunky creatures and expensive removal and life gain stuff, so we can try to race. And like I said, maybe we supposed to mulligan this hand, but as aggressive as their deck is, these double Nowhere to Runs are just, they just seem good. He's likely to have a 2-drop that I can kill with it. Then I play Toby. I could probably kill a 3 or 4-drop with another one. I mean, we have to kind of rely on the top of our deck, which has not been nice to us yet today. But that's what we're doing here. And there is the 2-drop. Not the greatest one for me to kill, but I think being mana efficient... I was going to say being mana efficient is important, but clearly I did not think so in the past. I actually think that getting the trigger off the Cult Healer is going to be important, because the Cult Healer does have lifelink, and using lifelink to try to race an aggressive deck is not a bad spot to be. So play the Fear and Veteran Survivor here. And I have to skip to my hand, and I have to make an interesting attack block decision here. If I attack, if they choose to double block, I can Nowhere to Run one of them to really blow them out. But now I still want this lifelink. So I use the Nowhere to Run to kill one of these creatures, get the lifelink, and then keep up one more Nowhere to Run. Maybe I should have just played Toby, but I feel like a baseball bat just like ruins that plan. Just tap down my 1/1 and then I can't block anything. So I hold up the other Nowhere to Run. This makes my hand a little awkward mana efficiency wise. That's another spot I could have been convinced to do something else, but that's what I went with in the moment. I'm trying to save this other Nowhere to Run to be another trigger for this Cult Healer to gain some life, but gosh, this deck goes so wide. It makes it really difficult for me to get through. So now I think the clear play is Toby and Nowhere to Run, but if I attack, I'm hoping they're gonna double block, but I don't see why they would when they're the aggressive deck here. So I just pass it back and hold up removal, hold up blockers, and don't know what this could be, but I've got Nowhere to Run to help me out. So I make this. I'm sure they're going to flip it up and have it be something relevant, but then the Nowhere to Run can really blow out their whole turn here. I get lifelink, their creature goes down, and this is an enormous swing in my direction, I think. Land doesn't help even in the slightest. And trapped in this green, I just don't think I need to use it on any of these things. So we skip forward a little bit. They played an Enduring Vitality. I used it on that. Creatures haven't really changed much, but they drew that dang baseball bat again. And I had forgotten Veteran Survivor surviving 3 times. Turns it into a 5/4 with hexproof. And now we're at the point of the game where we're just going to draw a bunch of dorky creatures that don't matter and keep having them getting tapped down by baseball bat. So, I mean, we've got some powerful stuff in this deck to draw. We are not doing so, unfortunately. So, I don't know what's correct here. Go ahead and trade creature for creature. We need something. Winter's Intervention really isn't something. I mean, they're going to attack, tap down the Cult Healer. I can use Toby and the Winter's Intervention to kill the Fear of Surveillance. That's my thought here. But turns out Cult Healer won't even make it to combat. So now I am currently dead on board, except the Winter's Intervention has to be used to simply gain 2 life. 2 mana, gain 2 life. That's all it can do. Because that gets tapped, that resolves. I'm taking 8, so I do this. I gain 2, I go to 1, and to cap it off, doesn't really matter what we draw at this point, but a Plains certainly won't help. And just like that, week 4 ends with an 0-5. Pretty brutal end to the tournament here. I was in 37th place, started the week at 9-6, ended up 9-11 in this league. I skipped forward. I didn't look at this until much later in the week here. In 62nd place is where we currently sit, and there's still about 48 hours left in this week. Top 62 actually deserve or are awarded prizes in this league. And this graphic was made about 6 hours ago, and even since then I've fallen to about 65th or 66th. So I think we're going to end up in the 70s in our first league. This is where we ended up, and just a brutal way to go out. I mean, I think we ran a little bit, unlucky today, but I don't think I played particularly optimally, and it's my first experience in this league, so I'm going to learn as we go how to rebuild these decks a little bit. But that does mean AGL DSK version is done, but there is a zombie league, which will be coming to you next Sunday. It's a 2-week league with I think like a 10-pack sealed pool, and top 8 get to draft. And it's records reset, a new set of people, new set of records, new pool. 2 weeks, 5 matches each week, and maybe if we can go 7-3, 8-2, something like that, we can find our way into a top 8 draft. So that is how we're going to finish Duskmourn with a zombie league. Brutal ending to this one. Hope you guys still enjoyed this content. We will be continuing having AGL content here on the channel. Once again, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in today, and I'll see you next time here at Daily Draft.